You're listening to WPPM LP Philadelphia, and welcome back to What's Next, the PhillyCAM radio program that explores politics and today's hottest issues from a diverse perspective. This is your host, Ray Collazo. I'm a family man, organizer, and I'm still bloated. Tanto pernil y coquito en mi vida. Over the holidays, you know, Puerto Ricans, Yaya, celebrate Christmas like a season. It's not like a day, or it's not a holiday. It's like Ramadan. I mean, it's a whole part of our lives. What's Next is back in 2019 with a new resolve, new radio home here at WPPM 106.5 FM in Philadelphia, and a new co-host. Welcome back, and hopefully here to stay, Yashira, Yaya Rivera. Yaya, welcome back.
Thank you, Ray.
So what's next?
I'm so pumped to be here. I'm excited, ready to crush it today.
Well, everyone knows that to really do things right, you have to have the that Latina wisdom in the building. And we had to bring you on because we got to keep. There's so much to talk about in 2019. There's a lot of issues.
Yes, there is.
News, politics, bochinche. There's so much, Yaya.
So much bochinche.
Yaya, reintroduce yourself. Let people know where you're coming from and what's making you so excited to be part of the What's Next community here.
Yes, I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me back, of course. We had our first podcast several months ago discussing reproductive rights and justice, all of the traveling I did. So I'm excited to be here, of course, and thank you for the opportunity. And I'm super thrilled today because I get to finally meet. I mean, we have been going back and forth for months and months and months to finally meet, and we get to meet today, finally, Queen Delilah. Yay! Delilah Dee. Queen, she's a queen.
Yaya's here like
social
seconds,
media.
and we get an A-lister. It's incredible.
I've been following on social media. You're such an inspiration. So thank you for, coming here in such a short notice. So before we get into, dancing today and crushing it, I just wanted to quickly do a quick,
Absolutely.
I want the audience to really know who we're talking about and who we're talking to. Because, we really can't paint a picture, so we have to do it with words, right? So, so Delilah Dee here that we're fortunate enough to have, on our first show this year, is the founder of Delilah & Company, LLC, a digital content and events agency that pushes positive messages. Remember that, listeners, positive messages to move people of color into action, to shift from dreamers to doers. What I like to say, Latinos like to be doers. Okay.
Always.
The Philadelphia-born and raised proud Latina is pretty much an embodiment of vitality, fortifying the community she is cultivating around her, including me. I mean, I'm a huge fan. That's why when Rebecca introduced us, I'm like, yes, I need to know her now. And
see, Yaya can do that because if I sit here and say how much of a fan I am, I look creepy. So Yaya can be the fangirl, and I'll just pretend I don't follow all your IG stories. But that's another story.
So through her agency, her team produces inspirational digital content, and also she conveys a message of resilience, the si se puede, the grit that Latinos and Latinas have. So it's important to have her here today.
All of that being said, but Dee also likes to get paid. She is an impresario. She ain't doing this for free. I mean, it's all positivity. Delilah Dee, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you for having me. It's a huge honor. I'm excited. We're kicking off the year. We're coming together, bringing the community, and
What's so great about this is that it was almost like, because we wanted this is the first show of 2019, and our whole thought, me and Yaya and our executive producer Vanessa, we were thinking about this, said, we really got to kick this up about how do we raise our voice, and we're going to talk about the hate on AOC and the shutdown, all these news topics to speak to people, particularly women of color, people trying to silence their voice. And we were like, wow, the best guest for this to speak about this would be Dee. And it turns out y'all were going to be connected anyway. So thank you so much for being on the show today.
No problem. It's so funny. I love that you guys are starting off the year talking about this because actually I was speaking about this on social media. My word for 2019 is infiltration. And basically what it is infiltrating and dominating every single space I walk into, especially spaces that are not typically known for people like me. So that means in order for me to do that, I had to use my voice. I had to utilize my platform. I had to use my resources to, let my voice be heard, and not just for me, but for my people as well.
And this is what we're seeing in politics, right? Because, and I think about, you're very much in the same boat in that. So newly inaugurated Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. And I think about her background, right? And you could debate, agree or disagree with certain policies.
The jacket. Her jacket's too fancy.
The fashion game. Game. She wore white. She wears red lipstick, hoop earrings. But I wonder who else is like that. But her and I think about people like you, you're doing everything we're supposed to do. What are we taught to do? Okay, you grow up in the hood, you're supposed to work hard. You're supposed to get your education. You're supposed to give back to your community. You're supposed to vote. You're supposed to be civically engaged. Alexandria is doing all of those things, the youngest woman in the history of U.S. Congress.
Okay.
And, and for having opinions on policy, which I think is your job as a congressperson,
Yes.
she's being hated on obsessively by the right wing. Do you see the same thing happening too? You're a Latina, you're educated, you're doing your thing, you're being entrepreneur, you're being a capitalist, doing it in a way that's positive. Do you still feel that pressure for people, the haters and people trying to critique you?
I wouldn't necessarily say the haters, but definitely people who question my authority. People question whether I'm able to successfully pull off certain things, especially because, well, a lot of the work that I do is predominantly in the entertainment industry, even though I've been tackling into different industries. However, with what I do is pretty much male dominated. So a lot of events that I do, even a lot of partnerships I do is always like there's always men in the room, and I'm usually always the only woman. And on top of that, being a young woman on top of that, so it's just kind of like they'll question whether I'm able to do, but everything that's thrown my way, I'm able to successfully accomplish it. And I'm like, yeah, like no, I get stuff.
So I know there's a lot of young women out there that are like so excited about this because they're feeling the same way. They're looking for a way to like have their voice heard, or they're doing their thing, they're pursuing what they want to do, but they're feeling the same pressure. So give them a strategy, give them a tip. How are you sort of overcoming that and making sure people hear what you have to say?
Honestly, a lot of it has to do with you understanding who you are and the power you have within. So being a minority within this community, and it's something I speak on heavily, especially when you're of Latino descent, like you need to understand the fact that you are here right now, there's so much power in that. There's such a deep, dark history when it comes to Latino history. So we literally have entire bloodlines that have been erased from, from millions, even, I'm half Peruvian. So over 90% of like the Peruvian lineage, from our indigenous folks have been erased. So I'm a descendant of like less than 10% that survived colonization. You think I'm going to waste my time on Earth? You think I'm going to like not dominate every single thing that I put my mind to? Like, it is such a privilege to be alive. My ancestors, your ancestors, they fought for you to be here right now. They went through God knows what for you, for just to be living and breathing in this earth. And that's something I don't take lightly at all. So understanding my history, and it's just like, it's something, me personally, that has worked for me. And that's something that I especially stress, especially within the minority community, is understand your roots, understand where you come from. Because when you do that, then you have a greater sense of appreciation for where you are right now. That's and right. Then even if you don't really, if you're not exactly where you envision yourself to be, however, you're still going to have gratitude, and it's going to make you to fight harder and push for where you want to be. That's eventually. Right.
I saw this cartoon the other day that showed the Machu Picchu and the pyramids in Mexico and the pyramids in Egypt, and it said, white people always want to think if they didn't build it, they think aliens made it. Like, we had very like
we're just smart.
the Incan when the Europeans got to South America, the Incan society was arguably the most advanced in the world.
And Ray, let's not forget this. There's an entire show on TV called Ancient Aliens that kind of make it seem that we're not from this earth. And I'm not going to front, like I have watched a pretty good handful of those episodes. Here, we like to say boberia in Spanish. It's like, so you mean because we're advanced, we have to be aliens, right? I mean, it explains why we don't age. But it doesn't explain the fact that we built these monumental things, science, math, technology, all of these things that have been around. It's like, no, it's because we're amazing.
So yeah. Okay. So how do you? What gave you the confidence, Yaya? I'm curious because you don't have no problem saying what you got to say. And so I'm curious, like, where do you think that came from for you?
So it came from me. I would be honest with you. It came to me, I would say, about 7 years ago when I was diagnosed with multiple autoimmune diseases. I had to say to myself, all right, well, I can't depend on a man. I can't depend on other women. I can't depend on nobody to love me as much as I do. So it was a life-exchanging experience, and it was a negative one. So that's why I try to encourage women, you don't have to go through a life catastrophe or a terrible situation to really acknowledge that it's okay to love yourself. And one of the things that I had to deal with often was how I look. I mean, it's a phenomenon. I grew up in Central PA, so it's like, are you black? Are you white? Are you black? Are you white? It's like this constant question, and I I feel that I am Afro-Latina. Like, I embrace my African roots. I mean, look at this hair. Like, I can't be mad at this. So I got it then, unfortunately, in a negative situation, but I try every day to remind myself that it's okay to be different. It's okay to be Latina. It's okay to be Afro-Latina. It's okay to encourage other women to be encouraging. You know, when I see Delilah Dee on the internet, I'm like, yes, girl. I don't say, ugh. Like, no, I don't have time for that. I see other women as partners. I see other women as encouragement. I don't see them as competition, because that's petty. If I wanted to be homecoming queen in my adulthood, I'd still be in high school, and we're not. So it's kind of like we have to find a way to speak out and not be afraid to do it. Do it respectable, do it professionally, but understand, to a lot what Delilah said, I take my heritage, I wear my, like, literally I wear Puerto Rico on my sleeve. So who else is going to do it if I don't do it? So that is where I am. And I have no problem with saying what's on my mind.
I feel that. So
that's why you have me here, right?
That's right. So Dee, so in the marketing world that you're in, what have you? One of the things I like about your platform is that you're bringing the Latin flavor, but also the urban landscape into it. So how are you bringing your unique style to the marketing and the event planning that you do?
Well, the thing is, so a lot of the events that we do, or anything that we push out in general, is targeted towards the minority community in general. So it's not just for the Latinx community, because something I've realized, as I was saying, understanding our roots, understanding where we come from, the Black and brown community are aligned in so many different ways. So everything from our history to even just like what we're currently going through right now, I just figured that, you know, for all of the stuff that we do is just targeted towards them. So, it's just, you know, just uniting them and just, you know, becoming, you know, solid, you know, to unite and, instead of, like, you know, just being separated, when it's just like we can tackle things together. But
see, and the thing is, I think y'all generation is really going to teach us so much, because I was talking to one of my homies, Rolando Rodriguez, shout out to Trill Multicultural, does a lot of work, somewhat similar to what you do down in Houston. And he was saying that when he went to one of his clients, because they wanted to do a community event in Houston with the youth, and he said, well, the artist that the Latino kids in Houston are going to respond to the best is Paul Wall. And they were like, but he's like a white rapper. He's like, no, but he's from this community, and he relates to their everyday struggle. So we're kind of, I think one of the things y'all generation is trying to teach all of us is that we have to look past, we have to honor each other's backgrounds, but we have to look past these labels and not make assumptions around, well, you're just doing Spanish language marketing, or you're just doing like you're just doing it a certain type of way.
Agreed.
No doubt. So so I wanted to ask you about with this getting back to the Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez conversation. What have you noticed about the hatred she's been getting and kind of the media coverage of kind of, she was on 60 Minutes. They're like nitpicking every little thing she said. And by the way, for those that don't realize that, you know, first of all, they sort of led her with that conversation around the tax bracket. And that was the tax bracket for the ultra wealthy in the 50s and 60s. So if you think it's radical, Dwight Eisenhower wasn't exactly radical. So.
Well, I mean, she's getting a lot of heat, as we know. I think, firstly, it's because she's a woman. Let's be serious here. Sexism is real, so let's not completely forget that. Not only is she a woman, she's not a white woman, so that's number 2. And thirdly, she's Latina, so that's 3. So, and she's young, 4. So there's a lot of reasons to why people discredit her. There's a lot of reasons to why they frown upon her. The whole video nonsense, I mean, let's be real.
The dancing video?
Yeah, like how they tried, they literally tried to bury her.
That was the most wholesome video I've ever seen.
Well, because like when I saw it, I was like, oh my God, please don't tell me she's in her bra and underwear. That's like the first thing I thought when I saw the headline. And then when I saw she's doing like,
cute little Disney Channel moves.
It was like, oh, like that's cute. It's just, you know, it was a way for them to. It was a way for that party to kind of pull us away from real issues and to tell us really what's going on. I feel too many times they use distractions and rumors as a method to really pull us away from what's really happening, and that's all it was. I mean, we want to sit here. I'm not about bringing women down or never slut shaming, but let's be real. You're going to be mad about Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez dancing on a rooftop, but there's never anything said about the president's wife being nude on a million photographs. So it's kind of like, okay, you need to pick and choose. Either you pick a kind of a category of what you feel is inappropriate and stick with it. Because Michelle Obama was getting heat wearing wearing no sleeves. You know, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez was getting heat over dancing. If that's the case, then crickets. I mean, seriously. So that's what I have to feel with that. It's shenanigans. It's a method for them to pull us away from what's really happening.
A lot of distractions, a lot of hate, and that's why we want to, when we come back from our break, we want to get into some of these news topics. The government is still shut down, and at some point we do have to talk about the elephant in the room. This R. Kelly documentary was the buzz on social media this weekend. There was a lot of us saying, where were y'all 20 years ago? We've known this for a long time, but when we come back, we'll get back into that conversation with our new guest, co-host Yaya, and our special guest Delilah Dee. Welcome back. You're listening to WPPM LP Philadelphia, 106.5 FM, people-powered media. Nah, I mean, before we get into the news conversation, we got to talk about the shutdown, R. Kelly, and other things. Yaya, you wanted to share with us a word from our sponsor today.
Absolutely. I love sponsors. We all love sponsors. So today's broadcast and or podcast is provided you by Youth Testify, a program of the National Network of Abortion Funds and Advocates for Youth. Young leaders in the Youth Testify program are sharing their abortion stories to show why it's important for them to have access to abortion care when they need it. Young folks face so many challenges, when trying to get an abortion. They have to get permission from a judge or guardian, miss school for multiple appointments, and raise hundreds, potentially thousands of dollars to pay for it. Young people need control over their lives, they need control over their bodies, and most importantly, they need control over their futures. That's why they're leading the fight for abortion access. For more information, please be sure to visit youthtestify.org. Let me say that again, youthtestify.org.
Thank you, Yaya, and we got to catch people up on the news, and the government is still shut down, isn't it, Yaya?
It is shut down. It's quite devastating. I mean, it's something that I've discussed multiple times today, especially when it comes Parks and Rec. That's one of the leading ways in the United States receives funding. You know, when you talk about tourism in the United States, that's how the United States makes money. So to know that all the national parks and all of these locations are having complications with pollution and the trash isn't being taken out, and all of these issues could be potentially affect the next several years. It's not even just it's not 9 days, it's years.
That's right.
So it's really saddening to know that that's not even one thing. People aren't getting paid.
Food inspectors aren't working.
I know they're not. The TSA are required to work because
you know TSA ain't work without getting paid. Come on, let's keep it real. We all know TSA workers. They calling out.
And I feel like what's most upsetting about this situation is that the people up top, They'll be fine. Like, let's be real. Like, they're going to be okay. It's the working class citizens who work in the government that are most negatively impacted.
800,000 workers.
800,000,
Their families. That does include other businesses that get impacted, that ripple effect. And I watched President Trump's speech to the nation last night.
God bless you, because I didn't. Well,
I have a responsibility. I have a radio show. We got to talk about this.
I know that's
so. There's
true.
a couple things I think that are very clear that I want people to understand. The first one is when you talk about a crisis. So historically, presidential addresses, these primetime addresses, you reserve these things for major moments, 9/11. When you get bin Laden, these major crises that require the president to speak directly to the nation. And when I think about, the supposed crisis he's talking about with a wall, and I think about the crises that are really impacting our people day to day, and I think about the opioid crisis, and I'm like, are you going to build a wall around that Rite Aid and that CVS that's on every corner where people are getting their drugs?
Well, not even just that. I mean, unless the wall can reach an altitude of airplanes, how are we going to prevent the number one cause of, immigration when it comes to overstaying their visa?
And the largest group that does that are Canadians.
I know. I read that this morning, and I was like, so are we just going to build an entire wall around the whole United States border? Have fun going to the beach, kids. We got to go through security to go to the beach. I mean, it's getting out of control. The wall has absolutely nothing to do with the security of the nation. It has nothing to do with it.
It's interesting because the Parkland shooter wasn't an immigrant. The Charleston shooter wasn't an immigrant. Nope. But of course, that would be, you'd have to go up against the NRA. You'd have to go up against pharma. You'd have to deal with real issues. So instead of talking about real things that impact real people, all we have is a president that is essentially a used car salesman that had billions of dollars of credit lines, because that's all he is. He's a con artist. And the only thing he has left for his people to offer his little base of insecure people is hate.
Absolutely.
And trying to convince people. Let me tell you something. Keep it real, especially with the 3 Puerto Ricans in here. When a Puerto Rican has someone move in next to them, they take a deep breath. Who's going to move in next to me? Right? And when you find out it's an immigrant, you happy. If it's a Ukrainian or a Korean or an Ecuadorian, you're like, thank God it's an immigrant. Because guess what? That immigrant's going to be at work most of the time. You're not even going to see them. And they're just trying to lay low and live their lives. They're not here. They're only doing is contributing to this country. So this idea that immigrants are the problem, are you kidding? I was driving up Castro Avenue the other day, and all you see is immigrant restaurants, immigrant businesses. You think about North Philly, Northeast Philly, what's driving the economy of these neighborhoods? It's Dominican bodegas, it's Asian grocers, it's immigrant entrepreneurs. We need more of that spirit in this country, not less.
Absolutely. And I mean, it's been proven throughout history that immigration is very necessary for culture. I mean, I'm sorry to break it to you, but pizza's not American. I know. Mind blown. Pizza is from Italy. So
how about pork fried rice?
Pork fried rice.
That's kind of my most favorite American food.
Chinese food in the United States isn't real Chinese food.
Oh, now okay. I'm so sorry.
They kind of improv it. But honestly, if people, I just have to giggle that you say that, because if I want the listeners to really understand, again, this is Yaya Rivera talking. I want people to really understand, the next time you put food in your mouth, there's only 5, there is a list of things Americans do bring to the table, but unless it's a hamburger, a Philly cheesesteak, what are you putting in your mouth? That isn't from the United States. I feel that people are it's a lot easier for them to just spew hate and to really know what they're doing. How about your clothes? Look at your labels. Who made your car? What food are you eating? Who built your home? It's it's beyond me to think that there's so much hate towards so many groups of people right now, especially Latin America, Central America, Latinos and Hispanics in general, because you have to understand, just because, we're speaking Spanish in public, we're being detained and questioned because we're not speaking English. Right. I mean, all of us could be easily pulled over or arrested because of that. So I think people need to be a little bit more cautious. So the next time you eat something, I want you to take out your little cellular device, also known as a computer, and Google, where did it come from? I can guarantee you most often yes than no that it's not.
Who founded Google? Immigrants. Who founded Apple? Son of an immigrant. Dee, being the Puerto Rican Peruvian at the table, I know, and your wonderful Peruvian mother sitting here, behind the stage, leading the charge. I know when you see this hating on immigrants, and how much your immigrant background gave to you. I know it's got to infuriate you. How does your immigrant background drive you as a businesswoman?
So my thing is, I know one of the core terms you kept on saying was American, American, American. What is your definition of an American?
Oh, it's the colonizers.
Yes.
No, that's what I meant. No, colonizers. No, because the thing is that people always say this is America, this is America. In reality, America is a melting pot. It's right. Literally a plethora of everything. And first of all, it's literally an idea. And before colonizers, there was indigenous people here that were also wiped out. Back to Delilah's point earlier about Peru and Central and South America. It's there's almost like this idea. I don't even know what the proper adjective is to use it. It's like, this is mine.
No,
And it's like,
and there's this idea that Latinos are
happened.
foreigners,
and
and
like,
it's actually the complete opposite.
So though I feel like when I was saying that earlier, I was kind of explaining it from those that think from a biased opinion, like their unrealistic idea of what America is and what it should be, and in reality what it is, especially when it comes to food, culture, clothing, agriculture, economics. Like, next time you go into a store or do something, that's what I was referring to. Like, who is it? Like, I want to know who it is. Like, I'm just trying to find solutions for people to really dig deep and think on a daily basis what you depend on to live a secure and happy little cushiony life while there's families and children in cages. Like, think to yourself, was it a Caucasian American who did this, or who actually developed this product?
It was a Puerto Rican that developed Hamilton. Okay. I mean, come on, you can't get any
you'll
more
live-
American than
I
that.
know, that's
The other
so
thing before we
perfect.
get into the R. Kelly stuff I wanted to mention on the government shutdown is that I want people, the thing that we have to challenge is this notion, you're starting to see this in the media, where they're talking to these federal government workers and they say things like, well, I don't care who started it. They got to figure it out. They got to compromise. And at some point, they're going to start pushing this narrative that the Democrats, oh, just give them the $5 billion. Who cares? And let me tell you something. If your 7-year-old wants to eat 5 Reese's Pieces before he goes to bed, and you say no, that's not the parent's fault for having to compromise with the kid. That's you being a responsible parent. In the same way that the Democrats are just being responsible in having this conversation. They've actually voted several times over the last several weeks to support the Republican plan to open the government. So the Republicans in the Senate have supported that. The Democrats in the House have supported that. So this isn't about Democrats in a political fight. This is about one person that is unfit for office, that unfortunately has nothing left but this ego trip about this wall, and we're gonna have to do everything we can to push back on that. So, Yaya, I know as one of our social media mavens here, we were inundated once this Lifetime special on R. Kelly
you
began.
were. I mean, I've known about R. Kelly since Space
we
Jam.
all were.
So,
that was the issue. But it doesn't matter if you knew about it or you didn't.
I've known about R. Kelly since I believe I can fly.
I mean, it was new or renewed for a lot of people.
No, it was renewed, and I think
it was all people were talking about this weekend.
No, it's not even just this weekend. I feel like it's everyone. It's still on every social media platform, and I think it's very important because, in a sense, it is a part of the Me Too movement. But most importantly, I think it's very interesting to see the outlash and the outcry, but also those who continue to support R. Kelly. I mean, it's been very interesting to see both perspectives, and I've tried to dig deep and tried to understand, and I still don't get it. I mean, he married a 15-year-old girl when he was 27. I mean, was that a warning? Like, did we forget about that? Or the video, the awful video. She was a minor. I mean, how many red flags were there and no one did anything about it because you were dancing to a song at some wedding? And people need to start taking accountability to the people in many industries and not support them. Like, your accountability is not supporting them. So when people tell me, oh my God, did you watch the R. Kelly thing? I don't have to. I mean, I watched 15 minutes of it. I'm like, okay, I'm done, because it's very hard for me as a reproductive justice advocate and being in the community and having to deal with survivors of sexual assault. It's so saddening. It's a trigger for women who have been through sexual assault. So I'm not here for it. It's so repulsive to me that his music has spiked, like the sales have spiked and the listening and the streaming has spiked. It really goes to show how ignorant this country is when it comes to the gruesome reality of sexual assault. I mean, this is nothing new. 1 in 4 women within their lifetime are going to be sexually assaulted. No ifs, ands, or buts. I mean, that is the statistic. And women are not reporting it. I wonder why. When these strong women and directors and producers create a docuseries and people are still listening and buying his music, and then you want to ask me why they don't report it. It's like, no. Or when everything happened with Kavanaugh and she went on stage to court and was strong and he still was, he's still a nominee and still is Supreme Court Justice. Yeah. So it's a lot of triggers.
Travesty.
I know we're in a movement right now, and it's a very important movement, because those of you who are listening and those who are watching, you need to have this discussion more often, because the people who you have around your life, especially if you have children, talk to them, talk to your girls, talk to your boys. That's another thing we need to understand. It isn't just young girls and women who are being sexually assaulted. Young men are. I mean, if you see the crisis with, the Catholic Church in Pennsylvania, when you see the crisis with the entertainment industry, with the Weinsteins of the world, when you see all of these things, it's like, do we really need to see a docuseries? What we need to do is to find a solution and take action to stop the shenanigans. When you are at a wedding and you hear Step in the Name of Love come on, either you go up to the DJ and you tell them to shut it off, or you say, like NSYNC says, bye, bye, bye. Because you leaving it on the radio station, and by you continuing to download and doing it, you're just keeping him on his platinum throne as he continues with his cult, as he continues to seduce and manipulate and brainwash these young girls, and it's unacceptable. And if I hear one more person say, oh, she was too fast, saying, oh, she looked too old, or she was dressing too old, or she shouldn't be doing that, where are the parents? I'm sorry, are we taking the judgment of young girls and teenagers more accountable to a grown man? He is grown. He is making the choices to do this. Those who continue to support him, and even in the you see like other rappers and other celebrities coming out to defend him, sit down. It's time for you to sit down.
That's right.
So it's, as you can see, I'm very passionate about this.
Yes.
And I get really irritated because in some instance, I hate saying this. It hurts my feelings to say it, but do we really care about our black girls?
That's right.
Do we really care about do we really care about our black and brown girls that we're still having this conversation?
And by the way, not only when you think about that, if those, first of all, it wouldn't have been that many cases if there was white girls, and there wouldn't have been a Lifetime special.
And I don't want to think
days.
that, and I don't want to say that, but it's, in a sense, it really is the truth.
To sensationalize it.
Yes, because
absolutely, I agree.
So many girls have been affected.
That's right.
And it's so saddening because R. Kelly is just a mere little itty bitty piece of this massive puzzle of the true issues of sexual assault. And at what point are we going to come together as a nation to stop victimizing these girls, and to stop victimizing those who have been survivors and victims of sexual assault? And I'm going to finish my little tangent here with I want the listeners to pick their brains, okay? If those of you who are victims of discrimination and racism, if you want people to believe you, if you want people to be on your side when you say, I wasn't served because of my color, this happened because of my color, and you want to be listened to, and you want people to believe you, then all of you need to start believing survivors of sexual assault. Because those who are lying about it, like these moms that are creating clubs for their sons to be sure they're not wrongfully accused, sit down. I need all of you to hold hands and take all seats. I don't care if it's a folding chair, a plush chair, a sofa chair, take the seat. So I want you to think that. Right. So when a person comes to you and says, I've been sexually assaulted, you need to take your headphones on, put your phone down, and listen.
That's right. Dee, what was your take on, I just found the social media conversation over the weekend like really fascinating in terms of like how people were either defending him or trying to, or surprised as if they never heard about this.
No,
I've been getting
that a lot too, by the way. I meant to say that. Like, a lot of people are like, I didn't know this about R. Kelly.
Well, a lot of people didn't know all of it. So I think that was kind of So what was your take on the conversation that was happening?
It was a little bit frustrating because this is something that me and my aunt, we speak about on a daily. We've known about the R. Kelly case, obviously, for years now. And we've even shared when the article had came out, when there was going into depth about the victims and still how people were overlooked everything. So, one thing you did say is, like, we are in a time of the Me Too movement. But when you think about the Me Too movement, who are the head of these people? Who's the head of the movement? It's all white women. So that's why
they stole it from a black woman.
Yeah, so exactly. So it's just like,
and the
like
most
you said,
elite, Hollywood.
It's very unfortunate, but
elite,
because these girls that if it would have happened one white girl that he raped, or if he would have taken her away, it would have been the only one.
That's right.
So it's just why is it multiple women, and even everyone in that documentary are all women of color. We're all black women. There was Latina women there as well too, but. It's very unfortunate, but this is like, I feel like it's definitely a cultural thing too, because women are taught to not really to not speak on these issues, to kind of be humble, to kind of be, you know, conservative, and then if we do act out in any way, look at what the juror said. Why did he rule against the victim? He said he didn't like the way she was dressed. He didn't like the way she was, you know, presenting herself. Like, really? So you literally have a video right in front of you that shows like him doing the act, but you decided to, you know, vote against the girl because you didn't like the way she was dressed, the way she looked.
Well, that's, like, I mean, that's a big issue. Like, you're a rapist regardless of what the woman's wearing.
Exactly.
Let's be real. She could have just a bra and underwear on, and then, like, it's again, like I had mentioned earlier, it's a choice. It's you making the choice to take it to that level, regardless of what she's wearing, regardless of how she looks, regardless of what she says, regardless of how many drinks she's had. It's called morality, people. It's really easy.
And then it's also at the same time, you know, as a parent, a lot of parents, they're over here worried about their girls. They're like, Mama, you can't dress like that because, you know, guys will look at you, blah, blah, blah. What are you telling your sons?
Exactly.
What are you teaching your sons? Why is it that you're so like point on, like you need to teach your daughter like not to dress this way, not to act a certain way because, you know, a man will not want you, or, you know, this is how you'll be viewed? Are you telling your son to honor a woman's body? Are you telling your son to treat them like a queen that they are? Like, you know, no, because when guys, you know, their sons, you know, and again, it's a cultural thing too. If, you know, say, oh, he's going to be a little player when he grows up. Oh, he's going to be breaking hearts. Oh, that's my baby. That's my nana. That's a cultural thing. And it's just like, and they enable it. And it's something that happens, you know, as a kid. And it's just actually a conversation I was having with one of my girlfriends recently, because, you know, she does have a son and she has a daughter. And then with the son, it's like, you know, I guess she came home and saying, oh, yeah, I think I like this boy. And she's like, no. But her son, which is way younger, he's in kindergarten. And he's like, yeah, I have 2 girlfriends. And she's like, oh, but it's not that serious. I'm like, no, you see, this is the problem. You guys think it's not that serious. But it's like, you got to start.
No,
like,
and in the Latino community, we got to like.
A lot of patriarchy.
It could be little things, because then like you get an old head like, well, back in the days, you know, you could date a young. It's like you just gotta stop that. Yeah. And you're absolutely right. Men have to step up in the same way our white allies in their own spaces, men in our own spaces have to step up and kill that noise and give no leeway. We're gonna take a breath because we've been getting into some deep stuff. When we come back from the break, we got. I mean, one of the queens of social media marketing, Delilah Dee, in the building. We're gonna learn more about how she's making things happen with Delilah and Company. Back to WPPM LP Philadelphia, 106.5 FM, people-powered media. You know, you can check out PhillyCAM not only at 106.5 FM in Philly, but check us out, all the audio, phillycam.org/listen, or check us out on the TuneIn app. PhillyCAM is services the community here in Philadelphia, but services everybody worldwide. We are here with my new co-host, Yashira Yaya Rivera, Yaya in the building. You're going to hear a lot from Yaya on Ray's Talk Show and the What's Next series on PhillyCAM. And we're so happy to have Yaya, Delilah Dee in the building. We got to pick Delilah's brain. She got a lot to say.
Yes. So, again, for those of you tuning in or have just tuned in, this is Yaya Rivera. Thank you, Ray, for that awesome introduction per usual. Like, I love working with Ray because he's like the original DJ Khaled. He's like, we in the building. We the best.
You up
so,
like,
yes.
You're not the only PR person over here, Dee. Can I tell you where it comes from? Let me tell you where it comes from.
Tell me where it comes from.
No, I'm going to tell you where it comes from, because it actually comes from being underwhelmed. Because what happened was I grew up, and it's people that know me, I grew up in North Philly. I went to an Ivy League school. I've had hotshot jobs, and I would go to the White House. I would go to the top of the Hollywood Hills. And the biggest thing I got out of it was, this is it? These people aren't that smart. These people aren't that great. These people, North Philly, like, they slicker and better with money. So I big up my people from Philly because they deserve that credit.
No, absolutely. And I respect that. So thank you, hype man of the century. So, Delilah, thank you again for being here. I just kind of want to tone it back a little bit since we got a little heated there with some R. Kelly. I feel like we should call him He Who Shall Not Be Named. Do a little bit of Lord Voldemort
in our lives.
A little bit of Lord Voldemort, but like He Who Shall Not Be Named. I was using that for the president. We can use it for R. Kelly too. So as you know, I've been a huge fan of you. I'm so thankful again that we had a mutual connection that connected us via internet, email anyways. So I was like looking at your social media and reading your bio, which is, super impressive. For those of you who are tuning in, be sure to check out Delilah. She crushes it. I was so impressed by everything, and really just, you're doing an awesome job.
Thank you.
You really are. So one of the questions I have for you after reading your media kit and your bio and following you, as women, I know Ray kind of touched on this earlier about confidence, which I feel we already tackled, so I kind of want to skip that question. And, being Latina and identifying as Latina through my personal experience, especially being Afro-Latina, it can be very challenging to kind of be true to your identity while being an entrepreneur and a businesswoman. So, how do you do that?
So the thing is with me, so this is something I speak on heavily too, like especially within the last 2 years, I've kind of gone deep into like understanding my cultural roots, understanding my Latinidad, understanding what it is that makes a Latinidad, because we have different roots, whether it's from Africa, indigenous, Asian, European, like we're all mixed in a bunch. So just kind of like a quick backstory of me. So as you said, I'm half Puerto Rican, half Peruvian, and growing up half Puerto Rican, half Peruvian in Philadelphia, I definitely did have my challenging moments in a sense of cultural identity wise. So when I was growing up, what's crazy is that, I was raised by my Peruvian family. But while I'm home, I'm very close to my family. We're, a strong dynamic. We do everything together. We have family dinners, celebrate all of our wins together. We're there, through trials and tribulations. However, outside of my home, I would never claim my Peruvian side. I used to only say I was Puerto Rican because, as you know, in Philadelphia, like the predominant races or Latino races here is Puerto Rican, Dominican, Colombian. If you're not of those three, you're considered like Mexican or other. So like even when I was growing up,
that's a fact.
So those are predominant cultures here. So growing up, kids could be a little mean in the schoolyard, and when you're like, oh yeah, I'm Puerto Rican, I'm Dominican, I'm Puerto Rican and Peruvian, they'll be like, ew, what's a Peru? Like, that sounds dirty, or that sounds, it's unfortunate, but they were ignorant of it. So because of that, that's something that just kind of subconsciously just made me insecure about who I was and, half of my identity. So you're talking to the girl, like my AIM screen name used to be Puerto Rican mommy, like, that's how it was. It's so crazy. I'm denying like a whole, a whole half of me, and it's just like, and it was crazy. It's like they're the ones who raised me, but yeah, it's just kind of so within the past 2 years, especially, I've been going deep into understanding who I am, understanding my roots, understanding what it took for me to get here, what it took, when my mother, she came to this country, or my grandparents, just learning about their stories, learning about, my ancestors in general. And just as I've been doing that, like I've been coming to learn an appreciation of who I am. And, valuing myself, who I am as a person, valuing my very existence in this earth right now. So with the confidence I've been gaining from me understanding my background, from me understanding my Latinidad and the power it is to be a Latina, regardless of whatever this political climate likes to tell me, it is we are powerful.
Absolutely.
We have a high purchasing power within America. We are the number one, purchaser, within last year, our purchasing power was over close to $2 trillion.
Latin music is now ahead of country music
exactly.
in sales and downloads.
Look at all the cross fusions happening, even with with the Latin culture, especially in the music industry too. But I've understand despite of regardless of me growing up in Philadelphia, North Philadelphia mainly, and just kind of people telling me I can't aspire to achieve certain things, but again, I know where I came from. I know what it took for me to get here, and I take that with me throughout my entrepreneurial journey. Regardless of any trials and tribulations and any obstacles, adversity, I'm here right now.
So Dee, it's one thing to have confidence, get out there, be a professional, be proud of who you are, but it's nothing, especially as a younger person, to start a business.
Yeah.
So talk to us, because there's a lot of people out there, and let me tell you something. There's a lot of people, especially Latinas. They're so good with social media. They're so good with. They have these skills. They have these talents. But they don't feel like they have the tools to create it into a business and a career. So help people with path.
Google. YouTube. I do not come from a family of entrepreneurs. I did not, unfortunately. My circle of friends is completely different from who it is 5 years ago. Side note, today is the 6th-year birthday of Delilah and Company.
Whoop, whoop.
That's right. Business anniversary. That's a big one. That's a big one.
Huge.
so,
she started in 7th grade. Yeah.
Congratulations.
That's that immigrant mentality. You know what I mean? We start.
So I didn't realize that until actually my assistant sent me. She texted me at midnight, say happy anniversary, and I'm like, oh wait, oh my gosh. But anyway, I've had to rely heavily. You know, I'm thankful for growing up in the digital age that we are in right now. So even though, granted, I didn't have direct access to this type of information, I had to teach myself everything. Which is why, you know, granted, it took me longer than it should have to, like, you know, acquire, you know, certain levels of achievement. But I had to teach myself what an LLC was. I had to teach myself what an EIN number is. I had to teach myself the difference between a fictitious name and a trademark, and, you know, getting certified from the state. What is a business license? What is a business account? And this is all stuff that I relied heavily on Google.
That is such an important lesson, because what I say is, like, Google's like or the internet's like an ocean of information, and Google's like the ship, because but you got to get on that ship, because it took me, when I started podcasting 5 years ago, it took me 31 episodes to figure out how to get it on iTunes, because I just couldn't figure it out. But I persisted, and I said, well, even if I can't get on iTunes, at least I'll get it on SoundCloud, and I'll start. You know what I mean? And I was doing this in my house until 3 weeks ago. You know, but you have to have that confidence in yourself to say it's okay not to know everything, and it's okay to have the confidence to ask.
Yeah, you know? And especially with asking, what's really important as well is asking for help. I feel like being the most beautiful thing about being Latina is that, you know, or in the Latinx community is, like, you know, we're so proud about our culture and heritage, almost to the point at times it comes across as stubbornness, and we're like, no, we got this ourselves. You know, it's like, no, it's okay to not know everything, and it's okay not to feel like you have to know everything. It's ask for help. See who your group of friends are, your network, and be like, listen, I need your help.
And if you're not getting that kind of positive feedback, or, okay, I don't know how to do it either, but let's try to figure it out, and that encouragement, then you got to look to have some other friends.
Yeah. Correct.
Because that's another thing, Dee, that I see you got on social media. Like, you must have a real positive network around you, because you're like always happy. And like, you always are like excited about stuff. And I'm like, she just can't get this from herself. So how have you been able to develop that network for yourself?
Oh my God. You know, shout out to like my entire circle, anyone in general that just like supports me. I have such a strong dynamic set of friends that I consider my family right now. And it, honestly, it's me showing up to places and being myself, not putting a mask on. Like, you know, I've been able to build genuine relationships with people. And it's just like, again, it's never a front. When I go to places, like, I introduce myself, who I am, and I won't even say like what I do. And even like, you know, so when people like, because that's kind of a thing now. So when you meet people for the first time, oh, what do you do? I usually don't like to lead with those questions. Like, I like to see like what person's mind is at. So like, you know, if I first meet you, I'll be like, what's 3 things you're grateful for? You know, tell me, you know, what, you know, is that's always a random conversation I have, because I want to know where your mind is at first, because like if I like where your mind is at, then I'm going to want to connect with you. I don't care what your credentials are. I don't care what you did or have done, because I've known a lot of people who have amazing credentials, worked with amazing things, but they're straight up douchebags. You know, they're very entitled. And just because, like, I'm not going to associate myself with you just because, you know, you have achieved this when your spirit sucks. So, you know, and, you know, I've had to learn the difference. But like everyone that, you know, I meet, that I've been meeting recently, I genuinely believe you get what you put out. Absolutely. And because I've been putting out, you know, when I've learned to, within the last 2 years especially, because I'm telling you, I've become more confident who I am as a person, who I am as a businesswoman, who I am as a Latina, who I am as a daughter, as a friend, you know, as a sister. I'm more confident as a person. So it's just like that kind of eludes like with the people that I'm bringing into my life. So, you know,
now, how is that? And that's the thing with social media, because it's easy to fake it on social media.
Yeah, of course.
You know, so when we come back, because we got to take a break, Delilah, I want to ask you, because you are nationally known to me. You're one IG stories. You are the queen of IG stories. So I want to, when we come back, you're going to give us some tidbits how you break it down on IG stories. So You're listening to 106.5 FM WPPM, and we will be back momentarily. Welcome back to What's Next, this radio program at WPPM 106.5 FM, people-powered media. This is a wonderful experience. This is your host, Ray Collazo, my co-host, Yashira Rivera. The final segment of the show, we're going to get to some quick hits. We're going to talk about being Boricua during the holiday season, which is a whole drama. But really quickly, we were talking to the famous Delilah Dee. Delilah, I was watching your IG story this morning, and it was dizzying because you packed so much information from your fake fit journey stuff to what night are we going to go to your Latin party, during the week. So give people just some quick tips about what makes, so people trying to develop their platform and IG stories, what makes yours flow, and what have you learned from that experience?
Honestly, with me, I'm authentic. Like, I don't have you're not going to get like a clear cut version of me. You're going to get me. Like, Delilah is everyone. Like, Delilah is the chill home girl. Delilah is the entrepreneur. Delilah is the stressed out girl. Like, you get it all. And the one thing that that I've been able to build genuine support, especially from my followers, I don't like to call them my family, my online family, is just, I'm very transparent about a lot of things. So, one thing, that you see, on social media is definitely a lot of people highlight. There's their highlight reel. Mm-hmm. They only show the good. So the thing is with me, I feel like since I've been open to a lot of things, I'm okay with sharing my downfalls. I'm okay with sharing okay, this is great that I just achieved this right now, but this had happened in order for me to achieve this moment.
Let me ask you this question, Dee. You could say this. It must be a little awkward, her being in the room. Has there ever been a time where you've thought about, before you shared something on IG, what your mom would think or your mom would say?
You haven't met my mother.
Oh, really? Okay. So this ain't the traditional Latina. So that so maybe that's empowered you to be keeping real, right?
My mom's always been very authentic. And
you can admit it. Has there been anything on there that she's ever did that made you cringe? Maybe I didn't want her to say that. So for those of you who can't
see us on Facebook,
I'm sorry.
For those of us who are listening live, honestly, she's shaking her head no. She's doing the strong, proud mama
Nah, empower her. Let her share what she got to share.
Hand movement at all. So I just wanted to give that visual. So yeah.
That's what's up.
So
okay.
It's definitely different because then even that's something that I was actually having a conversation with my friend about. Even my grandmother, she's definitely not the typical conservative. She's the one, especially at the age I'm at, it's usually typically, other Latino families when are you going to settle down? When are you going to have a kid? When are you going to get married? Yeah. My grandma's no, live your life, go travel, don't worry about boys, which is it's not common in Latino families at all. And the same thing with my mom, she just pushes me, I think, because you had me at a young age and, so you spent your entire life, dedicated to my brother and myself. So she just wants us to live our lives. And
she wants you to live your life so she can go have some fun too. That's another conversation. She's snapping. The people don't see her. She's snapping. On the final segment of the show, we wanted to get to some quick hits and talk about the Coquito War. So, what's your quick hit?
My quick hit, I want to go into 2019, telling all the listeners on those on Facebook that my hair, which is called la burbu, which is curly hair, is not pelo malo.
That's right.
Girl.
That's
actually,
right.
My girlfriend of mine that I met her in New York at the Globe Wellness Tour that I did. She actually has a clothing line that says Pelo Malo Wear, and she has beautiful.
Yes.
I'll send you.
We're having a date anyways.
I'm gonna concede my time because we only have a few minutes. Delilah, let people know where we can find you, what events you got popping, where we're gonna keep following you on IG. Please let people know where
you
they
can
can
find
go.
me on Instagram or Twitter. I'm more active on Instagram. I am Delilah Dee, DelilahdEE. I do have 2 events coming up. I have events going on every single month.
Well, give us what's the next one.
The next one we have coming up, I'm actually speaking at a women's conference, which is on the 19th. And for any woman that's specialized in communications fields, we have some amazing speakers that's teaching you everything from how to gain sponsorships for an event. I'm speaking about community over competition. We have the founder of PR company is talking about building your brand in general. And I also have another event on January 20th, which is that Sunday. It's a self-love Sunday Mitzvah, which is it's everything you need to kind of get your spirits going as you go on to take on 2019. We have live performances, we have live, spirit healings, we have activities that, to get your souls aligned. But it's all self-love related activities, and it's really fun. It's the 3rd installment. I partner up with my girl Kelsey. She's amazing, and yeah.
Well, Delilah Dee, quickly, where people can find you on social media.
I am Delilah Dee.
Yeah. I'll see you next week.
See you next week.
On What's Next, WPPM, People Powered Media. Thank you, Vanessa. Thank you, Dee. Thank you to your wonderful mother. We'll see you next week.